So now we know where notes are on the piano. We have the grand staff, we have our little mnemonics, we have Every Good Boy Does Fine, Face, Gingerbread Dog, Frosting Apple, we have All Cars Eat Gas, and then we have middle C in the middle. So then we have these things called intervals, okay? And intervals are not chords. They are a mixture of two quantities of notes. A quantity is the name of the note. So if it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, that's the quantity of the note. Quantity equals what note it is, what key it is on the keyboard. And then quality means, is it major sounding? Is it minor sounding? Is it augmented or is it diminished? And those are the four qualities. 4 qualities, 7 quantities, give or take. So now I'm going to get into, before I do intervals more in depth, I'm going to get into the sharps and flats. So say you're looking at a keyboard. Here's the keyboard. Here are my keys. This is C, D, that's a bad example. Let's do E, F, G, B, okay? What? That's not even what it is. E, F, G, A. There we go. So these are the white keys. And in between, if you look at a piano, we have we have black keys. Oh, they would be here. We have black keys. So E and F are 2 white keys next to each other. And then we have a black key here, G, black key here, A, black key here. So to make a note sharp, you go up by 1 half step, or 1 semitone if you want to get technical, but who wants to get technical? We're going to call it a half step because that's what it is. So a half step is between any 2 keys on the piano, okay? It doesn't matter what color they are. Whatever is right next door, that's a half step. Half step, E sharp, would be 1 half step up, it would be F, but you would call it E sharp, okay? There's these things called enharmonics. An enharmonic means it's the same key on a keyboard, not the same note. People will go so far as to say they don't sound the same. Thanks to like modern day tuning, they do. But like way back in the day, they didn't. In like Baroque periods, an E flat sounded different than a D sharp. But on the piano, an E flat and a D sharp, they're the same note. They're the same key. If you were to play like a scale with an E flat in it and a scale with a D sharp in it, you would hit that same note on the piano both times. But they would be called different things based on the key that you're in. And I'll get into keys in the next video because that's kind of important. But right now we're just going to talk intervals and half steps, whole steps. So intervals are 2 notes, and it's kind of their distance on a keyboard. And it's made up of the quantity and the quality of a note. So it's either major and then the distance between them, or minor and the distance between them, augmented distance between them, diminished distance between them. So I think of it like a spectrum. We have different types of intervals. So in an octave, if I were to go from C to C, there are 8 notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 1 octave from C to C. So this is what we're going to focus on, C to C. If you can imagine a keyboard in my hands right now, that's C to C. So starting at C, C is going to be our root every time. Talking about intervals, we can have a second, which means that there's only 1 note in between them, so we would count C, D. That's a second. And if I were to give you a third, that would be 3 note names apart, and you always count C. C, D, E, that's a third. C to E, always a third. C to D, always a second. C, D, E, F, always a fourth. C, D, E, F, G, always a fifth. C, D, E, F, G, A, 6th, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, 7th, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, octave. So that's the quantity of the note, whether or not it's a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a 7th, or an octave. And these are called simple intervals, which means that they're either an octave or less. They're in between that span, C to C. So we have, these can also be major, minor, augmented, or diminished. So again, spectrum. I kind of got ahead of myself. So there's a spectrum. They can either be major or minor intervals, or they can be perfect intervals. So let's start with the perfect intervals. Perfect intervals are always unison, which means C to C, just on that same C, it's just one note. Nobody uses that ever. If you have to know that, you know it now, but like that, you're not going to need to know more than that. Unisons are perfect. Fourths are perfect. So C, D, E, F, that would be a perfect fourth. Perfect fifth, that would be C to G. Always perfect. And then octaves are perfect. Everything else, a second, a third, a sixth, and a seventh, those are either major or minor, depending on how many half steps are in between that interval. So there's a chart I'm going to send you. I still look at the chart. I don't know this by heart. I definitely should based on where I am in theory, but I still cheat and look at the chart because it's kind of it's difficult to get in your head. So don't feel bad if you don't get this right away because I still look at the chart, but I should know. So again, the spectrum. So perfect is always perfect if you raise a perfect interval by one half step, aka one note on that keyboard, just one raised, it's augmented. Go back to perfect. If you lower it by one half step, diminished. So perfect, one more half step, augmented, one less half step, diminished. So let's look at a perfect fifth. We have C to G. C to G is perfect in its own. C natural, which means it's not sharp, it's not flat. To G natural, not sharp, not flat. So that it's perfect because it has 7 half steps in between C and G, always. 7 half steps, and this is true for any note ever. If an interval has 7 half steps in between, if you go to C, C sharp, D, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, G, F sharp, G. 7 half steps, perfect fifth. Always. 100% of the time. 7 half steps, perfect fifth. If it was D to A, perfect fifth. If it was B flat to F, perfect fifth. If it was F sharp to C sharp, perfect fifth. Doesn't matter. 7 half steps, perfect. If I were to take that G and I want to make it a G flat, it has to say, it can't be an F sharp. It has to be a G flat. So this is because the intervals are made up by the quantity and the quality. The quantity is G, which means that there are 5 note names in between. That gives it a fifth. The 7 half steps gives it the quality of perfect. So 5 note names, fifth, 7 half steps, perfect. Now, if I still have a G, no matter if it's a flat, sharp, double sharp, natural, whatever it be, that's still C to G. That's still a fifth. So now we have to come up with the quality of that interval if it's not perfect anymore, because it's no longer 7 half steps, because now we went C. So we have C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, G flat. We're going to call it G flat now because we're on G and we went 1 half step down. So now this is a G flat. Same note as F sharp, but for the purpose of this interval, it has to be G flat because it's still a fifth. Music is so stupid. And so this is a G flat. So we know it's a fifth, but now we have 1 half step less than a perfect fifth. So we'd call this a diminished fifth. This is like a special exception, a diminished fifth and an augmented fourth, which are the same. If I had called that note an F sharp, it would be called an augmented fourth because it's 1 half step higher than C to F, which would be a perfect fourth. So 1 half step higher would be C to F sharp, which would be a diminished fourth. This is called a tritone. A augmented fourth or a diminished fifth is called a tritone, and it sounds disgusting. Never use it. It sounds so stupid. It's like the beginning of Usher's the. Let's see if I can do it. So we have C. Wait. I can't play with my stupid fat fingers. We have C, a perfect fifth. Yeah, an augmented fifth. Diminished fifth. How gross does that sound? Also, an augmented fourth would be the same thing. Diminished fifth, augmented fourth. They're the same thing. This video is getting very long. But, so now with major and minor, so we have a third. So a third from C would be C, D, E. It would have to be an E. So, instead of perfect, augmented, diminished, major, minor has like one extra step. It's either major, 1/2 step lower than that would be minor, 1/2 step lower than that would be diminished, and then 1/2 step higher than major would be augmented. So there's just 4 little spaces that it could be based on where you move your half steps. So diminished, starting at the bottom, diminished, minor, major, augmented. So a major third would be how many half steps? Let's see. C, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Major third is 4 half steps. It would be C to E natural. 4 half steps all the time. Major third. Don't forget it. I forget it. It's okay, forget it. Major third, 4 half steps. Minor third, 3 half steps. Augmented third, 2 half steps, but you still gotta call it an E. So a major third is C to E natural. A minor third would be 1/2 step lower than E natural. So if we were going on a piano, we would just go E 1/2 step down, E 1/2 step down, always you're gonna call it E flat. Because E flat is when you just take one note and you just lower it a half step. And the sharp is when you raise it a half step. So E, C and E flat, minor third. C and E, major third. C and E sharp, augmented third. It's also a major fourth. A perfect fourth. There's no difference except E sharp and F natural. But you're never gonna have to know that much. So then, E flat, if you want to go 1/2 step lower than an E flat, you still have to call it an E, even though it's just a D. So, a name, D, named as an E, so we went down a flat, and then we took that flat, and we went down another flat. We're going to call that D, E double flat, because musicians are stupid. So, a diminished third, C, to E double flat. It's still E. It's still a third because C, D, E. I think that's it for intervals. Sorry, this was jam-packed. If you have any questions, please ask me. I can simplify it even further. It'll be better if I get on my piano and help you. I'm going to give you another video. Part 2 to intervals, just me showing you what they sound like.